today's our second talking point tonight. Drought and price rise. How exactly will Narendra Modi's promise of Achche Din be delivered? And joining me to answer that question, Ajay Jharkar is in our studios. He's the editor, Farmers Forum and President, Bharat Krishak Samaj. KJ Alphonse representing the BJP, and hopefully he will have some kind of an idea in terms of how this Achche Din promise can be delivered. And Sanjay Jha, over the last few years, who has been taking questions on why prices were rising, today is in the happy position of asking the BJP in terms of why prices are still rising. Prasenjit Bose, left economist, joining us from Kolkata, and Shankar Iyer is in Mumbai, author and economist. Welcome to all of you on the program. Let me first just begin with you, KJ Alphonse. There are two sides to this debate. There is the economic side and there is the political side. Let me first deal with you on the political side, because I'm just looking, sir, at the kind of statements which are being made by your present Prime Minister, country's present Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, all the way up to March 2014, when the last petrol and diesel price hike was announced. Look at this statement which was made by Mr. Modi. Congress had promised to curb inflation in 100 days, but did they live up to their promise? Do not trust those who betray public trust. If the governments of Vajpayee and Morarji Desai could stop price rise, why can't we? Now, Mr. Alphonse, you happen to be in power, and you've been in power now for what? For over a month now. I've just explained to our viewers all the decisions which are being taken. I do not see any difference in the strategy being adopted by the Congress and the BJP. The Congress, in any sense, was feeling that its hands were tied because there were so many allies in the government, and therefore they could not take these kind of steps which are being taken. Are you thinking of the common man? Are you thinking of the Aam Aadmi, sir?
See, we have been in power, I think, for exactly 36 days.
Yes.
I think Modi government has done a fantastic job in terms of setting the country on a direction. The country was derailed for the past 10 years, directionless, had no clue. The Prime Minister, the Council of Ministers, nobody had a clue what was happening. Today, in exactly 35 days, we have a direction. The entire secretariat,
the direction is of inflation, sir.
Yeah.
The direction is that over the next year at least, every citizen in this country will be forced to pay more. Now, that's the direction.
Today,
are you admitting that that's the direction?
Before I came
that there is bound to be a round of inflation?
Before I came to this discussion, I went to the market.
Yes.
And I found out what was the price of vegetables. We are talking about vegetables here. Today, tomato is selling at 5 rupees a kilogram, while it was selling at a much higher price last year in the market.
That's only in the retail. You're talking about the retail stores. You're not talking about
I'm talking about
stores.
retail. Today, all the other vegetables, in fact, bitter gourds, peas, chilies, all these vegetables, other than what you talk about onions and potatoes, they are selling at a much cheaper rate.
I don't know which store you went to, you know, because I also do my vegetable shopping myself, and I can tell you that these are not the prices that you are quoting.
I do it myself. Here is a farmer sitting here.
Yes.
He is coming from Punjab today. Yes. He can tell you better. I went to at least 3 stores today where the price of vegetables, other than for onions and potatoes, is much cheaper than what was last year. I am somebody who shops for my house. So I know the actual prices. I'm just not a politician and a bureaucrat.
Sanjay Jha, do you want to respond to what is being suggested by Mr. Alphonse here? Is the story the same in Mumbai also? Mr. Alphonse, if his view is to be believed, he believes that prices of vegetables have come down. Now, I'm asking him to give me the address of that shop. I'd like to go there and start buying my vegetables from there.
No, Bhupendra, don't waste your time. The government has an index of releasing the wholesale price, the retail price and the food inflation, and we'll have to take that and trust it more than some store that the BJP spokesperson has seemingly visited with some great results for himself. The truth of the matter is that, you know, this government has been going on and on about hoarding. The truth, Bhupendra, is that if a government wants to contain inflation, it has to focus on the supply side right away. This is what we were trying to do, but the supply side takes time. But Mr. Modi and his entire BJP party during the campaign that you covered, and you will know all the speeches that were made it appear that solving inflation is like a magic wand that Mr. Modi and the BJP are concealing in their kurtas, that the moment they will get into government, they will just kind of switch it around and crash will go the prices. Now the reality is hitting them in their face. You know, suddenly everybody is talking about the Iraq crisis aggravating crude oil prices, contributing to current account deficit and making it inflationary. Suddenly they are worried about a delayed monsoon. But these are realities that every government in the world has to face. And you know, right at the moment, hoarding can only be a temporary reason created, artificial scarcity created by some unscrupulous hoarders. Why doesn't the BJP demonstrate its will to take on the hoarders in Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Gujarat and Punjab, where clearly there are voters there as well.
Right.
You know, they are trying to make this into a political hot potato by, I've heard somebody
should
blaming
I put it this
on the
way?
media.
Yeah.
Okay,
Somebody
Mr.
is calling
Alphonse,
it a Congress.
are you
party.
just
It's a
guilty of
ridiculous
actually
allegation.
over-promising? You over-promised during the election
not at
campaign,
all.
as
See,
most parties do, and now you're under-delivering.
See, unfortunately,
That's the bottom line.
Sanjay Jha has no time to move. He's moving around from studio to studio from morning till evening. He's never been to a vegetable market. He doesn't know. Yesterday, Tuesday, Delhi government brought to the market 1,200 metric tons
So
of
I really want to
onions.
come with you, on this vegetable
no,
shopping spree.
I'm talking
Because I want to buy tomatoes at 5
I'm
rupees
talking
a kg.
about the supply side. 1,200 tons of onions we brought to the market, which was excess. We brought 1,299 metric tons of potatoes to the market, which was excess for Delhi market.
Right.
And therefore, we are dealing with the supply side.
No,
we
I mean, I find
Yes.
this. I find this quite intriguing.
No,
but
no, I'm talking about figures.
Prasenjit Bose, I'm also looking at figures. I'm also looking at figures.
Yes.
Prasenjit, there were 6 cycles of onion price rise in the last 9 years when the UPA was in power. Food inflation at the moment above 9.5%. Are you getting any sense that there is any difference in the approach which is being adopted by the BJP here, Prasenjit?
Absolutely not. In fact, I find what the BJP spokesperson is saying, I think he is, in some Alice in Wonderland kind of situation. I mean, what all he is talking about? I think that we have to address 2 core issues here.
Right.
First of all, does the BJP have any strategy which is different from the Congress to address the problem of inflation? Because despite what Mr. Jha is saying, the fact of the matter is that the UP has failed. And I think the UP has failed because what Mr. Jha is saying today, that it is a supply side problem that the government never realized when it was in power. So they kept on trying to compress demand and finally they lost the battle on the inflation front.
Right.
Now, how does the BJP want to address the supply side bottlenecks that is today creating a crisis?
Right.
Let us admit that there is it has hit a crisis proportion. Hoarding is only a tip of the iceberg. We have a supply crisis in our country. Number one. Number two is we are also living in a very hypocritical, society, where on the one hand we, rave and rant against subsidies. So if you do not want to give subsidies, then railway fares will go up, then fertilizer prices will go up, then transport costs will go up, then freight charges will go up, then LPG prices will go up, then diesel prices will go up, petrol prices will go up. And if all these input prices go up, then your general prices will also go up. So you have to bring some rationality back into the discourse.
Right.
That subsidies are important in the economy to stabilize certain essential commodity prices and input prices, especially agricultural input prices.
Okay.
I think that the BJP, first of all, has to come clean. It has promised the moon to the people. How is it different from the Congress?
Right.
How is its policies different from the Congress party as far as dealing with the inflation problem is concerned? First, let him clarify that rather than saying all these pocket bull stories.
Yes.
I went to this store, tomato is selling 5 rupees. What all is he saying?
No, I just want to bring in, Mr. Alphonse, just a second. I just want to bring in Shankar here because for a while, Shankar, that I've been listening to you and reading your columns, you've been making this case, Shankar, that that the government needs to do is to follow the money which is being spent, and you believe that Achche Din can really come. Now, we've just seen what's happened so far in the last 1 month. Do you believe that this government has adopted the right approach, Shankar?
Well, to start with, I think I'm going to go shopping with Mr. Alphonse for my vegetables.
Oh yeah, anytime.
Because
Come
that
over.
is really an alluring prospect of getting
I've already booked him.
budget right.
I've already booked him for that.
I'm going with Ajay. He's a farmer. We are going
Shankar
with
is
him.
talking. Okay, Shankar is talking.
Some relatives
So,
Right.
no, the simple point, Bhupendra, is how we manage our money. The biggest reason for inflation is the government's inability to control its expenditure, the wide gap between expenditure and its revenues. That is the big problem. Where it gets when it gets its incomes and its revenues, it has no real control over what it should be spent and what it should not be spent on. And when it does spend on something, we don't know whether it reaches the beneficiaries or not. For instance, a quick figure: every year the central and state governments together spend roughly 7 lakh crores on social sector programs. health, education, the works. And yet every few years we find ourselves sliding down on the human index that the United Nations puts out. So where is this money going? Classical definition of inflation is too much money chasing too few goods.
Right.
The Indian definition of inflation is too much government and too little result. So here's the thing that this government needs to understand, stand up and accept.
Right.
I mean, say that there are big problems, there are structural issues we need to fix and roll out a timetable. I mean, the problem with vegetables, whether it is tomatoes or onions or potatoes, is exactly what the problem was with milk in the 60s and 70s.
Right.
So milk used to travel from villages to urban centers. There was fluctuation, hoarding, spikes, scarcity, the works.
Right.
Same story with the vegetables. It travels from villages to the urban centers and there is a price hike. What is the lesson that we've learned from the Amul success? That we need to create a supply chain end to end. Why can't the government, I mean not this government, not the previous government, why can't they think about solutions instead of talking about stuff like, which is arbitrary stuff like, we'll catch hoarders.
But
I mean, for your information, every government from 1998, every finance minister has spoken about hoarding,
Right.
and that state should act against
And that's
hoarding.
my point,
And
Shankar.
16 years later, 16 years later, they are still talking about hoarders.
That's my point. Shankar, I'm just wondering that here is Mr. Modi with 282 MPs. The NDA is well over the figure of 300. And yet the political discourse, the words which are being used, the finance minister, the cabinet committee on economic affairs meets and says the real problem is hoarding. Now, I can give you so many statements which were made by the BJP itself, by the way, Shankar, when the BJP was in opposition, that the real reason why there is food inflation when the UPA was in power is because there was hoarding. Now, the problem was the same then, problem is the same now. Solutions were the same then, solutions are the same now. But is anyone thinking about the solution, Shankar? If at 282 seats you can't think of solutions, then who will think of solutions?
There's one issue in here.
One second. I've just put that question to Shankar. Let him respond and then I'm coming to you.
No, the thing is, first you have to cease out of this subscription to denial. You have to accept that we have fundamental structural issues in the economy and that we need to resolve. Whether we continue subsidies, how we deliver subsidies, whether it reaches people, that is the macro impact. On the supply side, we have to improve yield, we have to improve productivity, we have to improve storage, we have to improve distribution.
Right.
Now, how are we going to, somebody's got to stand up on the table and say, hey guys, we can't live like this anymore and we need to fix these issues and do it. I mean, I've heard about this hoarding for the last 3 weeks. The BJP and its allies rule, I think, about 5 states. I haven't heard of any raids in those 5 states. This is such an arbitrary issue that, I mean, do you fix a supply side problem by fixing hoarders? Do it. If it's a temporary measure, do it. Let it be seen.
And
the other BJP leaders have spoken about a cartel in Maharashtra.
Right.
Raid them.
Right. I mean, you talk about
I mean,
cartels
in
in
Pranab
Maharashtra.
Mukherjee's...
Right. But Ajay Veer Jhakar, I'm looking at some more figures, and in addition to what is being suggested by Shankar Iyer and Prasenjit Bose here, I mean, imagine if the monsoons this year were to be deficient, and already the agriculture minister, for instance, has spoken out where he says that if the rains do not come, say, within the next 2 to 3 days, and if we don't get normal monsoons, then there is going to be the huge specter of drought in many districts across the country. Do you believe that this is a government which does have a solution to deal with the kind of problems that have existed in the past also? The difference is this is a majority government. Does this government have solutions according to you?
So first of all, I would say that I agree with Mr. Shankar Iyer, and around 15 days ago, we offered that Bharat Krishak Samaj farmers were offering the tomatoes free to anyone who would come to our farms, pluck it and transport it.
See, look at that.
No, listen to me. And nobody came. Second thing we are saying is that it's too early for Modi ji to make a difference for Achche Din. He's just been there for a month. Let's give him more time. I think these are challenges today. If he doesn't do anything about it, a year, 2 years from now, they could be his faults.
Fair enough.
Because today the government has announced this Essential Commodities Act for potatoes and onions, and I think it's counterproductive. And I'll just come straight to this point first, because it's essential. Because onions and potatoes cannot be stored indefinitely. The supply that we have stored with hoarders or whoever is finite. In 4 months it will rot, so they have to come into the market anyway. First of all, Essential Commodities Act never works because the police has to enforce it, and there's so much corruption in every state and everywhere, it will not work. But should it work with this better governance of BJP, all the supply that we have that would have lasted for 3 or 4 months will come out in the market in 1 month.
You see, Mr. Alphonse,
so one second. So this is where the problem is. When you have a deficit monsoon, the new crop will only come in October, November onwards.
Which will only compound the matters further.
This Essential Commodities Act, if it should be successfully implemented, there will be a gap, month of 3 months, where the price of potatoes and onions will increase
why this
double.
question is being posed out of you, the reason why this question is being raised against the BJP is because for the last 10 years, every time Finance Minister of the UPA would perhaps make the same arguments as are being made by you, that you give us some more time. When Manmohan Singh would say prices would come down and let us deal with inflation, you would say that you don't know how to tackle economy. You would laugh at Chidambaram. You know, you were scornful of Manmohan Singh. You promised the moon, sir. And what has happened is that moon is, half of that moon isn't being delivered within this first 1 month. Are you willing to accept today on this program that maybe you simply overcommitted, you simply overpromised?
See, we all understand, all Indians understand the fundamentals of economics. In 35 days, you don't solve all the problems of India. He just sat on that seat. He brought a new work culture to India. India is looking at a new direction. Sorry, Modi cannot produce onions and potatoes in exactly 36 days. He cannot.
No one is asking him to go and become
I'm very sorry. We are dealing with, in the short run, in the past 1 week, we are dealing with the supply shortages in Delhi. We are bringing 1,200.
Will you deal with specifics? Will you, for instance, deal with urea subsidy?
Yes.
Should I tell you the amount of money which is being lost by the government in fertilizer subsidy?
Mr. Shankaraya,
can you go to the extent of dealing with that?
Let me talk about the problems of the last government.
No, you tell me, can you do? No.
Yes.
Sir, this problem of urea and fertilizer subsidy has been there for a long time.
Yes.
I'm asking you that you have 282 MPs, you're in majority. Are you willing to deal with that problem? Are you willing to reduce the subsidies?
Let me talk about a fundamental. One moment. One moment. See, Mr. Shankaraya talked about physical deficit.
Yes.
You know what did the UPA government leave with? 2,40,000 crores of physical deficit, which is 35.6%.
Your Prime Minister said you have given Congress so many years, you give me 60 months.
Which is supposed to be for the whole country, was spent in the first 2 months of this year.
Said you give me 60 months. Now I'm seeing 1 month is gone.
Yeah.
And you're accusing me of being in a hurry.
Sorry,
I'm not being in a hurry. I'm only trying to make you realize the kind of promises you have made.
See,
so maybe time is running out for you, sir. Hopefully the BJP is aware of this time is running out.
60 months, 1 month. We are there for 35 days. We are going to keep our promises. We are going to keep our promises better than anybody else in the world.
Better than anybody.
In the world is done.
Sanjay Jha, you buy that? Sanjay Jha, is this? I remember Sanjay Jha, how many times you would have been in KJ Alphonse's chair. When the UPA was in power, and I would hear precisely the same arguments. Now you may smile today, Sanjay. But isn't it, what does one make out of the situation then?
No, 1 second. Sanjay Jha, just give me a minute. Just give me a minute. Sanjay Jha, listen to me. We've had 10 years of Congress and nothing worked, right?
Right.
Now we have a month of Mr. Modi and nothing seems to be working again.
Nothing seems to be working.
So listen to this.
That's the sad part.
Listen to this. I don't know who they're talking to. Only 1% of potatoes are exported and they have a minimum export price for potatoes. It just doesn't make sense.
So you believe they're speaking to the wrong guys who may be claiming to be stakeholders?
I don't know who they're talking to.
Who are they talking to? Sanjay Jha.
I don't know who they're talking to.
Okay, Sanjay's response.
Congress never talked to the farmers and BJP doesn't seem to be talking to farmers.
When the gentleman quietens down, I will come in.
Come on, Sanjay.
Yeah. Bhupendra, my point is very simple. That I think the BJP has not been voted to government to complete the unfinished task of the UPA. If they want to be considered as a team B of the Congress, they are welcome. But the truth of the matter, and this is a reality, I remember on your channel, either with you or Rajdeep, we had mentioned that when the per capita income of India has gone up by roughly 3 times over the last 10 years, historically consumption patterns change.
Right.
And consumers, when they get a little more prosperity, they shift from the standard consumption of cereals into fruits, milk, meat, fish, eggs, etc. Now, if you don't increase the supply, because these are critical components of the food inflation basket, you will have a deficit.
Right.
Now, there is somebody there from some farmer cooperative on your panel,
Yes.
and he will tell you that today the big farmers are not investing in fruits and vegetables because, one, 25 to 30% of that gets destroyed because of poor distribution and storage, and plus the role of middlemen in the mandis who exploit them. So, eventually the irrational decision of the BJP government, I'm not saying that the results would have come today.
the only
but
thing that
but the
surprises me,
stupidity-
Sanjay Jha.
1 minute.
Yeah.
But the irrational decision almost ranks stupidity
You
in dismissing
call it
FDI
irrational.
multi-brand retail.
No. You see, you call it
as
irrational
wrong.
for the BJP.
I think in the
What
long run
exactly?
destroys
What is
an
exactly is
end-to-end
irrationality
supply
he's
chain
talking about?
solution.
What exactly
Mr.
is
Jha, you were in
We
power for
brought-
10 years.
we
And I've
brought-
just told you the number of cycles of price rise, that took place. Now the BJP is here, and Mr. Jharkhand is right that the Congress, the UPA didn't seemingly do anything, and the BJP doesn't seem to be doing anything.
We are on the right direction.
You're on the right track. But Prasenjit, final word to Prasenjit.
Bhupendra, just one
Yeah.
last point.
Yes, quickly.
Just one last point.
Quickly, sir.
You see, when we had the global recession, the government to keep the growth rate, to make sure that output and growth continue to be very strong, pumped in a lot of money. That was a fiscal stimulus. And I agree with you. That's what we struggled with. We have paid a huge
20 seconds.
political
Are you
cost.
just disappointed
Demand
with,
went up,
with
supply
this
wasn't good
discourse?
enough.
Prasenjit, this discourse, on one hand you have price rise, on the other possibility of a deficient monsoon. Are we in for a very, very prolonged spell of inflation here?
Yeah, I mean, I am very skeptical, because I think that as far as the BJP is concerned, and people obviously have voted for them because they have a lot of expectations, but I think that a lot of people also are, they know that as far as economic policies are concerned, Congress and BJP are just two sides of the same coin.
Right.
So I don't think that the BJP will be able to come up with any new ideas.
Okay.
But the quality of debate that we have on inflation is something which I think, for instance, the Congress spokesperson still thinks that bringing in Walmart is going to bring down inflation. I mean, come on. And please grow up. And let us not complicate the matter to such extent. The point is, we have to take a call on subsidies, and we have to understand
That's
that
exactly the point I was raising. That's exactly the point I was asking Mr. Alphonse. But he's unwilling to answer that right now.
You raise diesel prices, you raise railway fares, and then you say that inflation is happening because of this reason,
Well,
that
gentlemen,
reason.
in conclusion, I'll only say this.
Gentlemen,
In conclusion, I'll only say this. What amazes me is that every time I put a question to Mr. Alphonse, I see a huge smile on Sanjay Jha's face. Every time there is a tough question put against the Congress, I see a huge smile on KJ Alphonse's face. Maybe the destiny of this country is
But
only
they are
caught
very
with
similar.
they're very similar. Gentlemen, thank you so much. I've run out of time on this one, but thank you so much. Hopefully, this Achche Din promise, if not delivered today, if not delivered in a month's time, hopefully at least we're on target. We've had enough of cynicism and negativity in our country. Hopefully we're on target towards possible Achche Din. Right, time.